Hi, everyone. How are you this evening? I am going to read a quick statement before we start the North Andover Finance Committee's our public hearing. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Andover Finance Committee will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandovermass.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 26 or online at northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we're unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. It is a public hearing, and we did publish my email address, but if anyone has questions, you can email fweinrich@northandoverma.gov. All right, so I will ask that we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the
and to
republic
the republic for which it stands, one
stands
nation, under God,
indivisible, liberty and
justice.
Thank you.
that was interesting.
We'll call this meeting to order. It's now 7:03. Again, this is the public hearing for the North Andover Finance Committee. It's Tuesday, April 8th, 2020. I would like to start just with a roll call so that we know who is in attendance right now. Let me pull up our list for everyone. We are getting some feedback.
Let's see.
If you are not speaking, if you could mute, that would be incredibly helpful, please, just as a practice.
Tell me how to mute again. Oh, never mind. I got it.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Great.
Yes.
Yep.
Of course, you get.
All right. I was just asked by a member to please forward. They're having trouble, so I just need to forward this to one other member. Apologies for the interruption. Okay. All right, so we'll give everyone a minute, but to start, Ed McMillan.
Here.
Christine Allen. I know she's here. She's just on mute.
You might have to press *6 on your phone to unmute yourself. I think the default is everybody's muted until you hit *6.
Did you hear me say about Jen Lutz is trying to get in?
Yeah, I just sent it to her.
Oh, okay.
If you want to try to forward the invitation as well, that would be helpful. But Chris is present. Divya is not here this evening. Kevin Foley.
I'm here, Sasha.
Thank you. Chuck Trafton.
Here, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Tim Shearhart.
think, Tim, you're on mute. You got to press *6 on your
Yep,
phone.
yeah.
Probably to unmute.
Actually, I couldn't my name being called.
Oh, apologies. Well, Tim, glad to have you. Great. All right. And then Thomas Ringler just joined. So Thomas, can you confirm you're here? I think you're on mute. You'll just have to unmute quickly.
I'm here.
Thank you, Thomas.
Am I
And
late? Because I just saw it said 6 p.m. start.
Nope, it's a 7 p.m. start. That's a technological requirement from CAM, or from IT and CAM, that they ask for that to be open.
All right.
So we are just waiting. Our Jen Laws is not here at the moment, but is calling in. So when she joins, we'll make that known for the record. Let's move forward. So tonight is our formal public hearing. At this time, it's really per the charter, a public hearing on the proposed budget and capital improvement plan. Does anyone have any discussion? At the moment, I do not have any questions. So we can continue to move forward. I'll leave some time so that, if there's any additional public comment, people have a minute to email me some questions if they have them. But generally, just to discuss briefly the proposed budget and capital improvement plan, I think at this time, we all, before the current pandemic, we're relatively comfortable with how the proposed FY21 budget and capital improvement plan looked. However, we now are evaluating the impacts that COVID-19 will have on our finances in the town of North Andover, and that will, require further discussion and analysis, which we will have because town meeting was now moved to June 16th. So during old business, I plan to allow us to have a conversation about how that impacts the warrant letter and talk to Lynn about, some of the information that we would want to discuss with her in the next month while we prepare for recommendation to taxpayers through that letter. But currently, I'm just waiting to, again, we'll give it a few minutes, see if I receive any public comment via email.
Sasha, while we're waiting,
Yes.
do we have a new or revised calendar, assuming that the town meeting is held in June?
No, we can just push everything, but this is our public hearing, right? So after April 8th, we planned on having our public hearing. I'm just looking at the budget calendar before town meeting was changed. Our public hearing today, and also to vote on the budget and revised CIP. So I can speak to the town administrators and find out when we will need our report due. And so we would correspond those two things, right? So when we would have that finalized, but it gives us approximately another month to really work on them because it's literally a month out. Does that make sense or answer your question?
Yeah, I think if anything changes to the budget, this is our formal public hearing, I get it. But if anything changes, I see Jennifer just joined. That we've been talking about maybe in the background a little bit, one-on-one, then I would recommend and suggest that there be another public hearing.
Well, thank you for that suggestion. We have been discussing that. We also, at every single meeting, allow for 2 sessions of public comment as well. So as this process evolves, if we feel like we want to have a second public hearing, we can do so. Otherwise, there's ample opportunity, in my opinion, for anyone to provide comment in a virtual setting like they would for a public hearing as well, right? At this time, I hear you, Tim, and we are going to have a couple more conversations about timing. And we can talk about that a bit in old business as well with Lynn on some of the things she's working on in that time frame, and that will allow us to kind of build out a schedule roughly for the next month. At this time, I have no public comment, so I am going to give us a few more minutes because that's how the schedule looks, but we're gonna take a few minutes. Does anyone have any other comments? Just for the record, Jen Luz has joined our meeting. I know Tim mentioned it, but she is here. I think we can move on to the approval of minutes, and then if I receive anything, I'll continue to check my email and we can go back to that. So we have 3 sessions of minutes to approve: March 10th, March 24th, and March 31st. So let's get some housekeeping done. So once you all have a moment, if you could just let me know and let me know if someone who was at the March 10th meeting has a motion.
I was at the March 10th meeting. I make a motion to accept the March 10th meeting minutes as published.
Do I have a second?
I second, Chuck.
Chuck, you can't. I don't think you were there.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Jen, you were at the meeting.
Yes, sorry, second. I was just looking for them. Sorry for the delay.
No, that's okay. All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right. Let's keep moving. March 24th. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes from the March 24th meeting.
Jen, for the record, Jen Luz approved the move to approve the minutes from the March 24th meeting. Do I have a second?
It's Tim. I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Minutes are approved. Let's move to our meeting from last week, please. So that's March 31st. I have 2 small changes to those. Let me pull them up. So the recommended changes I have are in on the first page under the 3rd comment. It just should be the legislature, not legislator. And additionally, on page 3, there's just a typo. It should be COVID-19, not Corvid-19. Do I have a motion to approve? Chris, you're muted.
So moved. I move to approve the minutes of, what was the day?
March 31st.
March 31st. Sorry.
With the recommended changes?
The recommended changes.
Thank you. That was Chris Allen. Do I have a second?
Ed will second.
Thank you, Ed. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposition? Nope. Okay. All right, thank you. That was some housekeeping things that we kind of had to get through. I'm just checking my email one more time before we move to old business. No, at this time, I still do not have any questions for public comment. So at this time, I'll close the public comment, officially there, and we will move to old business. For old business, we had already discussed last week with Lynn some of the concerns members had or questions they had, and we also discussed it with the town manager regarding the impacts of COVID-19 on the town's finances. So we are fortunate at this point; we're not in a rush. It's still, we have to perform timely and make a recommendation in a timely manner, but we don't have to have a letter done by Friday. So we're lucky in that, in that regard. I think it would be helpful for us to just hear from Lynn very quickly about some of the things she's working on to further kind of take a look at the financials, and then we can have a conversation around that and move forward. Lynn, do you mind giving us a little bit of an understanding of what you guys are working on?
Sure, no problem. Hello, everybody. I just want to let you know, what I'm going to be doing is waiting for the treasurer's office to finish posting all of the March receipts so that I have all my financials through the 3 quarters, okay? So that I at least know where we stand presently, and I can build projections from there. So I know where we're going to end the year, whether I feel we'll have some really large surpluses, things like that, that will fall to free cash. I need to start with somewhere. Then I'm going to pull up and start reviewing the projections or the budget that we put together and the revenue projections that the Revenue Fixed Cost Committee presented to the town manager. And I'm going to analyze some views as to what would happen if, for example, on the real estate taxes, if we normally collect maybe 90% of the real estate taxes within the year, I'm going to look and see what's going to happen. Okay, if we get only 85% or 80%, and I'll do a couple different scenarios and analyze that as to how much it will actually reduce the overall revenues, because that's the only one that I can see between that and the motor vehicle excise that would really be the main items that we might want to be real concerned on, because of course people losing their jobs, they can't pay their taxes. Even though we have 2/3 of our taxpayers that are paid through escrows, which means the bank pays it on their behalf because the bank has been escrowing their funds. So I'm not too worried that we're going to get a really big impact, but I want to be able to let everybody know that if we do, these are the areas of what the type of cuts we'd have to make. So if it's an 85%, how much are we going to have in reduced revenues, which could be $6 million? Where are we going to cut $6 million out of the budget? So my concern is if we move forward without the budget voted on the expense side the way it is, if come September, October, even November, we find that we're going to be okay, we're not going to have a problem in collecting revenues, we're going to have a special town meeting in order to readjust the budget back up. So it's easier for me to put a hold and start making reductions and freeze the budget come November timeframe than it is to try and put back. You can't put back once it's been voted. And if I've worked with a lot of you throughout the years, I mean, I've been with the town for 18 years, going on 19 years. And the way I run my budget and annual budget is I pay attention to it monthly, weekly. And when we have really tough times, which I've been through a lot of tough times with the town, I was here through the recession and everything. We put freezes on the budgets. I can't get my tax rate certified in December if I don't have a balanced budget and I feel I can't meet the budget that we put forward. So I have to put a reduction. So I have some safeguards in place. There's some other options we can do where once I do this analysis and figure out what the percentage type increases we might have to do across the board between the town and the school, is work with the superintendent and the town manager to put together some sort of an MOU that says, okay, if we only collect 75% of our real estate taxes, we're gonna have this much of a reduction, so everybody's gotta cut this percentage. If we have 80%, then it would be this percent. So that everybody is aware and all on the same page that when November comes around and I push through that we have to do these reductions, nobody's shocked. Because we're letting everybody know ahead of time that this is what's happening. I've looked through every other revenue source, interest income. We've pretty much got all our money tied up, most of it in CDs, which they're going on out beyond next fiscal year, which is the expiration date actually is in like July of next year. And we're getting great interest rates right now on those. We've already, for example, this year we budgeted 400,000 for interest income. We've already collected 619 because we have our funds invested properly and with good interest rates that they're not changing. There's, unless the state decides that they're not going to start giving us the state aid, that could be a problem, but I don't foresee that. Even if we just get what we budgeted, which was, we budgeted what was actually received in FY19. So even if they did a small reduction, we'd still be okay in that area as well. So I don't know if anybody has any other ideas of what they want to see for an analysis, but I will take all of the revenue sources and say, if it's reduced this much, what would be the impact? And then it would have to be a tough decision whether we decide to put the budget through the way it is and allow us to have an MOU and follow this analysis and say, if the collections is at this level, this is what we do.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate that explanation. That was helpful.
Okay.
I'm sure members have questions. So does anyone have a question specifically for Lynn about?
Yeah, this is Thomas. So I don't, understand the whole flow. You say, initially I thought, okay, most of the tax payments are in an escrow account, and banks have or may have not the money to pay. What if I stop paying my mortgage? Would the bank, despite having it accrued in an escrow account, still pay my property tax, or is there an obligation they have to? Or are they saying, hey, you haven't paid your mortgage for 3 months, we're not going to pay the tax, we don't pay that property tax bill on your behalf unless you're gonna catch up. So I'm just wondering how that all works, and maybe there are more experts there that can tell me what is possible and what's not.
Thomas, this is Lynn. There is a requirement by law that if they've escrowed the money to pay the taxes for the property, they have to pay it. I have the statute, and I have a full explanation from our auditors as well that I can forward to all of you. I don't have it on my fingertips right at the moment because we asked that specific question because the Board of Selectmen asked us that. And it is required by law because they don't want to see, we become the first lien holder on the property. So if they don't pay their taxes, it goes to tax title and we're the first lien holder and we get the money before the bank does if the property is sold. Not that we wanted to get to that level, but the banks are required, and most of the time the banks will continue to pay the tax bill even if the resident or the taxpayer isn't paying their mortgage.
Oh, I didn't know that you're in first place.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's a good thing. I mean, the question is, of course, how can you monetize the first place? But certainly, it's better than second. That's good. That makes me feel a little bit better. The other question is, by when would you have that scenario? you could provide, and so we can see how, you know, a 80% collection, how that would impact the budget?
Well, I'm waiting for the treasurer to finish posting all of March, just so that I can see where I end up with March. I would say probably in a week. Because we're working on skeleton crew and we're shuffling papers, you know, one person's going in, picking it up and delivering it to people because town hall is closed. It's getting done. It's just that it's getting done a little slower than if we were physically in the building.
No, understood, Lynn, and thank you. We appreciate it, and that you guys, you know, are still working and during this time. I think, given that we as a committee can talk about, you know, our next meeting and potentially, but if you think that'll take about a week, potentially we should meet after that point. So we can review all of that analysis and absorb it together. Does anyone have any specific questions for Lynn now that we have her?
Yeah, I had a question, Sasha. It's Ed here. Hi, Lynn.
Hi, Ed.
I was reading today, and I wish I saved the article, but we've talked about at the meetings for years. Healthcare has increased by low to mid single digits, and that's been a pretty good thing. But as a result of COVID-19, I was with somebody prognosticating on the insurance industry, and they said that very likely is going to end. Our hospital system is so financially stressed right now. They're going to have to raise the prices of their services, which is scary, and then that'll be factored into insurance rates as well. So, wondering if that's something that we would want to be aware of. Certainly we buy from a big consortium, but is that something that we should put on our radar, where health insurance is a pretty big expense for the town?
I can talk with the town manager and the deputy town manager. I know the deputy town manager does most of the health insurance, and I believe Melissa is actually on a committee
Yeah.
with the GPC. So
She's
I
on
can
the
ask
deck,
them that question and have them look into it and see if it's something they feel is going to impact us, but it's the timing as to when. Is it going to hit 2021 or is it going to be 2022 is something that we're going to have to keep on our radar.
Yeah, like I said, it was a fairly compelling article, and it kind of made sense. But I pointed out that if just to be thinking about it, because it is a potential increase.
Where did you see that article? Do you recall?
I'm going through my trash, my email trash right now, trying to find it. I thought I saved it, but I didn't. If I can find it, I'll forward it to all you guys.
Perfect.
Thanks, Ed. Great.
This is Tim. Lynn, Melissa,
Hi, Tim.
and you had a pretty good presentation about the risk associated with FY21 forecasted revenues. And I think in general, I'm a believer in what was said. I think there's so many unknowns, whether it be motor vehicle excise tax or all the state aid. I mean, a recent article saying that the tax receipts for the state are coming in dribbles. And so I just believe that there could be an impact there regarding, and it trickles down to all the towns and cities. But in general, though, I got the gist of what you were saying relative to the property taxes coming in. The thing that my major takeaway really, and I've expressed this to Sasha, was that if we feel real impact, and I think even Ed just alluded to it, it's not going to be necessarily next year, 21. It's going to be in 2022.
That is correct.
And if that's the case, and we're going to be really negatively impacted, why are we committing to certain costs that we're going to have to do something about in 2022's budget? I'm thinking in particular for the new hires. I'd hate to go hire staff, school people in particular, only to let go people in 2022 because of budget. Overall, I think the budget's great. Overall, I wouldn't change the top I wouldn't change it in totality, but in individual lines, I might suggest we take a closer look at it. And this is for the committee, and it's for you, Lynn, and also to pass on to Melissa. I think you guys opened up a little bit of a opening. You opened up an avenue. I don't know, don't know how far it can go, but is that called that finance committee reserve, where you can put money in, and collectively we, meaning collectively the town manager, Lynn, board of selectmen, finance committee, can manage that pool of money in case of, let's say, the shit hits the fan. It's not going to be part of the school budget to spend on teachers. But on the other hand, if Donald gets his way and the economy takes off, let it go, let it rip, and let's go back to the original plan.
Right. You can't really tell the school, once their budget's voted, their one number they get to do with as they please. You can't tell them how to spend it, unfortunately. That's Mass General Law. It's not my favorite, but it is what it is. So I don't know that you can restrict it in that way, where you put the money in your finance committee reserve for the new positions, and then say you'll give it to them when, give it out to them when we feel that it's available. They're looking to hire, they're going to hire in September. They're not going to hire mid-year.
So-
It wouldn't be worth it to them to do that.
So I think we also have to be careful, and I know we have spoken about this, Tim, and we also have to be careful about, we absolutely, because this is unprecedented times, need to think about unprecedented solutions, but we also need to be cognizant of the fact that, the school committee has a purview over the school budget, and the selectmen have, in conjunction, with the town manager, under the town manager's leadership, kind of have the authority over that municipal side of the budget, and we're an advisory committee. And so we've definitely discussed it. Just want to make sure that we are, that line item is being used the way it should be. And also, I don't know if we can even do that, right? We haven't spoken to Melissa about that. Lynn did mention kind of an MOU, which is an interesting concept to me, in that would then be between all the kind of facets of these people looking at the budget in detail, and that may be something that we also want to consider based on the results of kind of Lynn's analysis. But again, I think at this point there's nothing really that's off the table, and all creative solutions are important to try to get to a place where everyone feels good about what we're recommending to taxpayers.
And I think the key is going to be is, once I do the analysis and show the different percentage collections on the real estate taxes and motor vehicle excise, and what a couple percentage difference is going to make in dollars, and how we're going to have to handle deciding if it gets to one of these levels that is, I mean, you could be up $6 million off if the collections aren't, at 90%, say they're at 80%. I mean, it's a huge dollar amount. I do realize that, but we also have to take into account and realize that we built all of our reserves as well as a rainy day fund for when something happened that we couldn't control, that was unexpected and a catastrophe. And this is where we're at. Not that I'm saying I want to use the reserves, because I really hate to, but that's what they were there for. And when the economy builds back up again, we can build them back up. But that would be worst case scenario. I would think that we would want to start drawing from the reserves if we can't manage it with some creative solutions within the budgets, and possibly with MOUs.
So I think the first step, right, is just to do the analysis, and then to have for us to review the analysis and have a conversation about it and see, where that takes us. I assume in the interim, this is something you guys are talking about every day, yourself, the town manager, and other administrative staff, and as that evolves, we will also have conversations, the finance committee with you guys about, where what's happening. I mean, this is not like it's a stagnant situation where things are changing every day.
Correct.
All that being said, is there anything else that that anyone wants to discuss or have a conversation with Lynn about before we kind of move forward a little bit? All right, so in terms of, thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate that. That was a helpful explanation.
You're welcome.
So in terms of everything else, I think if those who haven't kind of already tried to write that specific kind of piece of their warrant letter, if they just want to work on, most people have and sent it, if they just want to work on what they already know as part of the budget, and then we can continue to fill in the rest, I think, over the next month. But I also don't want us to get to a week before the due date and be starting from scratch. So I will put together, in conjunction with Chris or Jen or whoever also wants to participate in that, everyone's kind of pieces, and we'll try to just go through it for consistency and grammatical stuff. And that can be kind of our foundation. And then we'd fill that in with any new information we're finding out. We'll write, we'll work on the executive summary once we have more information and put that together and really tailor what kind of we're going to do in terms of recommendations and our recommendations to taxpayers. But in the interim, I think it's helpful to just fill in the information we have today, and then we can tailor it, and the recommendations will evolve, if that makes sense to everyone and everyone agrees with that approach.
That makes sense to me, Sasha.
Yeah, it sounds good, Sasha.
Okay,
I don't know how else you could move forward. I really don't.
thank you. Okay, all right, so that's all I had. Does anyone have any other old business that they wanted to discuss? I think we'll end up probably having another meeting in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from last Thursday, but I will confirm, I'll look at the calendar, I'll confirm that kind of everything is moving in terms of analysis the way we thought, so that it's a purposeful meeting, so that we can really have something to look at and discuss, and then we'll go from there. Does that sound good to everyone?
Sounds good.
Sounds fine.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
That'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
That was Chris Allen seconding. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your help.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.